The everyday lives of ancient men and women could appear to be very detached, linguistically, socially, and most of the time, technologically, direct from the concerns of the whole modern world today. However, the demand for historical subject matter on both the big and little screens, Alexander, Troy, 300, HBO's Rome, and various History Channel programs do show the abiding obsession the classic world carries on to apply. A lot of people are attracted to the remarkable differences when considering the modern and ancient civilizations, while some others try to look for the roots for the contemporary ethnical attributes or the sources to deliver an explanation to our everyday lives. Irrespective of the procedure, history keeps something worthwhile for everyone. The foundation of who we actually are, somatically by means of our exact ancestors and forefathers, and also culturally in setting up the fundamentals in regards to our existing values and standards with social, religious, native, and political spheres. The exact same people that we look at happen to be fascinated by their very own past, in many cases inquiring about questions just like the ones we pose these days with regards to our past. We human beings happen to be superior creatures considering the fact that we've been using our brains to deal with the problems, obstacles, and challenges. We are able to work towards having development in all sorts, be it with cultural, economy, technology, and philosophy. This is exactly what mankind has proven today. History of humanity is kind of an intriguing subject matter for everyone as we discover a great deal of information and knowledge from ancient civilizations. In order to properly map the most oldest ancient of the entire civilizations in a proper structure, it becomes mandatory to crack the very birth of civilization. While acknowledging that, the following is a list of the top 15 oldest ancient civilizations that ever existed. Number 1. The ancient Mesopotamian Civilization. The Mesopotamian Civilization is situated in today's modern Iraq and is also the far eastern finish line of a segment of land referred to as the Fertile Crescent, a ground of abundance in olden days. 6,000 years ago, civilization came forth in Mesopotamia. The ancient Greek term that means the terrain, somewhere between the rivers, is intended these days to refer to the valley within the Tigris and Euphrates rivers that nurtured the earliest urban civilization, the Sumerians. Mesopotamia is usually attributed to being the actual place where civilized society really started to undergo its shape. Many people, more or less anywhere, were establishing the footwork for civilization for thousands of years. Agriculture was set up in 8000 BC. The accommodation of livestock, likewise, for a department of labor and meals improved all at one time. Most people have been producing artwork for millennia as of then. Formative laws and regulations had been forged in the shape of mores as well as folkways. Several of these were elements of human society and culture, however not civilization yet. Mesopotamians purified, enhanced, and structured such systems, mixing them up to create a great civilization. Number 2. The ancient Indus Valley Civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization is one of the oldest civilizations, originating from the 28th century BC to the 18th century BC. It's an ancient civilization, flourishing across the Indus River and the Ghaggar River, which at this point fall under Western India and Pakistan. A second term for this civilization often is named the Harappan Civilization of the Indus Valley, which is in regard to its initially excavated city of Harappa. This very civilization appears among the list of terrific ancient civilizations, coupled with the Sumerian civilization and ancient Egypt. The ethnic heritage belonging to the Indian people and Hinduism can be viewed as having roots in the life and routines of this civilization. A huge number of Aryans, the nomadic cattle herders, moved inside the land coming from Central Asia during 1500 BC. The Aryans surpassed the Hindu Kush mountaintops and got in touch with the Indus Valley Civilization. This was obviously a massive movement. It was previously viewed as an intrusion, which in turn was regarded as the primary reason for the failure of the Indus Valley Civilization. However, this preposition is not supported by everyone these days. During the period of many centuries, the Aryans bit by bit colonized along and practiced agriculture. The words introduced by the Aryans gathered supremacy over other regional dialects. The foundation of by far the most commonly spoken languages these days in South Asia dates back to the Aryans, who brought the Indo-European dialects straight into the Indian landmass. Number 3. The Ancient Egyptian Civilization. Ancient Egypt remained as the greatest civilization throughout the Mediterranean world for nearly 30 centuries, from its union in 3100 BC to its takeover by Alexander the Great in 332 BC. Coming from the large pyramids in the ancient kingdom along the militaristic conquests of the New Kingdom, Egypt's majesty carries long enthralled historians and archaeologists that crafted a brilliant sphere of study all on its own, which we today term as Egyptology. The primary means of knowledge and information regarding the early Egyptian empire are the various statues and memorials, items and artifacts which have been recuperated out of the archaeological areas, decorated with hieroglyphs, and have been deciphered not too long ago. Some of the images that come forth are relating to the culture, society, and lifestyle, along with a couple of spells as a part of their elegance to their craft. Renewing their domain under Artaxerxes III, the Persians yet again invaded Egypt in 343 BC. Alexander the Great of Macedonia conquered the armies of the Persian territory and defeated Egypt hardly 10 years down the road in 332 BC. Egypt had been governed by a series of Macedonian kings following the Alexander's demise, starting with Alexander's ordinary Ptolemy and carrying on with his descendants. The final leader of Ptolemaic Egypt, the infamous Cleopatra VII, relinquished Egypt towards the armed forces of Octavian in 31 BC. That's when Christianity took over as the formal religion of Rome with its provinces together with Egypt after the 6 centuries of Roman takeover. The beginning of Islamism, along with the conquering of Egypt by the Arabs during the 7th century, carried out the final outbound elements of ancient Egyptian culture and pushed the nation in the direction of its advanced incarnation. Number 4. The Ancient Mayan Civilization. The Maya are most likely the renowned of the ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica. While it began with the Yucatan near 2600 BC, they came into prestige in 250 AD in today's Guatemala, southern Mexico, northern Belize, and western Honduras. Relying on the handed-down innovations and strategies of previous civilizations, including the Olmec, the Maya evolved with calendrical systems, astronomy, and hieroglyphic writing. They were likewise recognized for complex and extremely embellished formal architectural mastery, such as palaces, temple pyramids, and observatories, almost all constructed without any metallic element. These people were additionally qualified commercial farmers, wiping out major portions of tropical jungle. Where groundwater used to be limited, they constructed massive reservoirs under the ground for the storing of rainwater. The Maya were just as competent as potters and weavers and absolved paths throughout jungles and swamps to nurture substantial business networks from faraway peoples. In 300 BC, the Maya put a hierarchical process of administration into practice along with regulation by kings and nobles. This particular civilization evolved into exceptionally organized kingdoms throughout the ancient period, i.e. 200 to 900 AD. The society of Mayan civilization was made up of several autonomous nations, where each one had a remote agricultural community and enormous elegant sites built near ceremonial centers. The civilization began to diminish in 900 AD, for factors that are mysterious mostly still to this day. The southern Maya left behind their towns as the Maya Empire eventually was coming to an end, as soon as the northern Maya were incorporated into the Toltec society in 1200 AD. Nevertheless, some circumferential centers went on to survive just before the Spanish conquest early in the 16th century. Number 5. The Ancient Chinese Civilization. China is amongst the world's earliest civilizations, going back a long period of time along with its prolonged history. The Yangtze River is regarded as the birthplace of Chinese civilization. Long-lost ancient texts have given us some evidence of the potential existence belonging to the Xia dynasty that endured way before the Shang dynasty in the approximate years of 1700 to 1046 BC. The very first phase in early Chinese civilization was in fact the Neolithic era, accompanied by the Xia dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, the Shang dynasty, and Western Zhou. The final term, widely known as part of the ancient Chinese era, had been Eastern Zhou. Sovereign China adhered to ancient Chinese civilization starting with the Qin dynasty. The men and women from this ancient Chinese civilization happened to be unencumbered with outside influence. These people forked out towards the growth and development of a civilization that was widespread. The positive effect of the ancient Chinese civilization to the people around the world was diverse. The Great Wall of China, constructed by Xi Huangdi, also known as Qin Shi Huangdi, is among the list of the 7 wonders of the world. The Chinese were the earliest to invent gunpowder, paper, and the mariner's compass. The lessons of Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Mencius likewise have pulled in several people across the globe. The contributions of the ancient Chinese civilization have simply been fantastic. Number 6. The Ancient Greek Civilization. The time period after the Mycenaean civilization that was over around 1200 BC to the demise of Alexander the Great in 323 BC gave rise to the ancient Greek civilization. It in fact was an era of philosophical, political, scientific, and artistic accomplishments that shaped a history with unprecedented impact on the Western civilization. During the course of the mysteriously named Greek Dark Ages, prior to the Archaic era, many people were living isolated all the way through Greece in limited harvesting villages. As they started to grow bigger, these types of villages started to blossom. A lot of them built walls, while a good number of people established a hybrid market, the agora, as well as a community gathering spot. They established governing bodies and arranged their people in line with some form of fundamental law, or even collection of laws and regulations. They brought up legions and obtained taxes. Each and every one of these regions, known as poleis, was considered to be safeguarded from their unique god or goddess, for whom the people of the polis paid a substantial amount of regard, reverence, and sacrifice. Greek militaristic leadership prepared the greatly equipped hoplite warriors to combat within a solid formation termed as a phalanx. Standing up arm to arm, some men were shielded by their neighbors' protective covering. This particular, overwhelming strategy played a crucial role during the Persian Wars and made it easier for the Greeks to develop their empire. Number 7. The Ancient Persian Civilization. The Persian Empire began right from 539 BC to 331 BC and was the absolute most formidable province across the world. Governed out of Persia, which today is referred to as Iran, it expanded out of Egypt to India. The empire owned abundant sources of fertile farmland, water, and gold. The Persians highly worshipped their fire god, Zoroaster. Persian rulers maintained their boastful position of king of kings, not to mention they also commanded an overall compliance as a result of their people. Subjected to King Darius, the dynasty had been separated into 20 regions in order to avoid any kind of single state from growing to be way too powerful. Every single land was ruled by their regulator, called a satrap. The satraps used to be regional rulers, designated by the king to rule specific districts. Darius made an effort to triumph over Athens and the mainland Greece in 490 BC. Most of the Greek towns, like Thebes, relinquished to Darius and also pulled in treaties with him. Yet unfortunately, Athens combated back and conquered the Persians, while Darius grabbed his military and decided to go home. Another Persian king, Xerxes, threw away a substantial revolt in Egypt and then suddenly mauled Greece yet again in 480 BC. However, Xerxes also got discomfited and walked home. The Persians more or less gave up working to grow their empire then. Even so, they carried on predominating from Afghanistan to Turkey and Egypt for an additional 150 years, until eventually they were actually vanquished by Alexander the Great. Number 8. The Ancient Roman Civilization. Ancient Rome, starting in the 8th century BC, came out of a small city in the center of Italy's Tiber River, directly into an empire in which at just its apex encompassed almost all of Britain, continental Europe, most of northern Africa, Western Asia, and the Mediterranean islands. One of the many legacies regarding Roman authority are the very common usage of the Romance languages: French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and Romanian. Rooted in Latin, soon after 450 years of being a republic, Rome turned into a territory during the aftermath of Julius Caesar's rise and fall in the 1st century BC. The much longer and victorious leadership of its very first emperor, Augustus, started off a historic period of public security and wealth. On the other hand, the empire's fall around the 5th century had probably been the most significant implosion as we look at the reputation of human civilization. As the legends tell you, Rome was built by Remus and Romulus, the twin sons of Mars, who was the god of battle. Dumped to drown inside a container on top of the Tiber by a king of the neighborhood Alba Longa and saved by a she-wolf, the twins survived to conquer that particular king and discovered their own unique town on the riverside in 753 BC. Subsequently, after wiping out his blood brother, Romulus took over as the very first king of Rome, which was certainly titled after him. A series of Latin, Sabine, and Etruscan, former Italian civilizations, rulers then followed over a non-heritable succession. Number 9. The Ancient Aztec Civilization. A large number of people think that the Aztec civilization arose in the region of today's New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada. Ancient records generally come from the later part of the 12th century, as they started to move to what we now call Central Mexico. The 21st century Mexicans are actually of mixed Spanish and native origins, forerunners belonging to the Mexicans, Aztecs, or of other indigenous peoples of the Aztec Empire and Mesoamerica. Mexico City now stands on the site from the Aztecs' highly extravagant city. The Aztec religion incorporated human sacrifices as part of high rituals in order to please their gods. Clothes and customs were always a significant part of almost all areas of Aztec lifestyle. The Aztecs happened to be a sophisticated as well as successful civilization that founded breathtaking and innovative villages. In the optimum, the Aztec culture had around 15 million individuals that resided in approximately 500 groups. The culturally rich Aztecs were very much fond of arts, music, crafts, and sciences. Music had a significant role in Aztec religious traditions toward worshiping their numerous gods and goddesses. Around 300,000 men and women were living inside Tenochtitlan, their capital city. Inside this particular famous town, the authorities monitored and were also accountable towards discipline, agriculture, and almost all elements concerning the civilization's financial state. Number 10. The Ancient Inca Civilization. Tiwanaku, the civilization also known as the Inca Empire, was a South American empire that lasted from 1438 CE to 1533 CE. In that time period, the Inca made use of conquering and law-abiding acculturation to include as part of their empire a considerable part of western South America, based on the Andean mountain peaks. Quechua was a state-run language of Tehuantinsuyu. However, more than 700 regional languages were spoken in the region. The Tehuantinsuyu ruler encouraged the worship of their gods and goddesses, the most important of which was the sun god, Inti. During the early 15th century, the city of Cusco was a smaller-sized topographic point, the home base of one of the most significant battling native tribes inside the vicinity that was once governed by Tiwanaku. Nevertheless, in 1438, a little son of the leader conquered the adjoining Chanca individuals, usurped strength, and gave himself the reverberating title Pachacuti, which meant transformer of the earth. And then he started off an impressive approach to militaristic growth. The strategy was carried on by his son, Topa Inca, oftentimes referred to as Tupac Inca. Number 11. The Ancient Elamite Civilization. Elam was an ancient civilization based in what these days called southwest Iran. Understanding of the Elamite historical past continues to be greatly fragmentary, as interpretation being influenced by primarily Mesopotamian sources. The town of Susa was established in 5000 BC. The primary Elamite locations display pottery which has no similarities in Mesopotamia. However, for the following period, the excavated ingredient makes identification using the ethnic heritage of Sumer of the Uruk period. Proto-Elamite impact was based on the Persian plateau in Susa that started being noticeable as of 3200 BC. Likewise, texts over the yet unknown Proto-Elamite writing techniques remain to be continuing up to the point of 2700 BC. The Proto-Elamite phase came to an end on the emesis of the Awan dynasty. Based on the Sumerian king list, the primary recognized ancient figure related to Elam is the king Enmabrajesi of Kish, who tamed it, having said that a genuine Elamite track record of all those kings and the whole civilization could only be tracked out of records from the start of the Akkadian Empire in 2300 BC forward. Number 12. The Ancient Hurian Civilization. The Hurri civilization had been well known in the closing stages of the 3rd millennium BC, near eastern Anatolia. Governed by the Mitanni king, it is actually said that the king was from an Indian decadency, originated through the mountaintops in the south of the Caspian Sea. The Hurrians utilized the terrain within the Assyria and Hittites, in the Zagros mountain area towards the east of the Tigris River. After that, they dispersed right into the regions of Syria and northern Mesopotamia, in addition to the Mediterranean coast. A few of these places at that period were called the land of the Hurri. Because of their wide scatter, the Hurrians developed into a rival and a hazard to both Egypt and Babylon. Down the middle of the 14th century, the Empire of Hittite, ruled by Suppiluliamus I, discomfited Mitanni, and thus Assyria announced its independence. Although the Hurrian cultural and ethnic position in the Cilicia, ancient Kizuwadna, and Syria were highly affected the Hittites, Hurrian mythology was widely applied in Hittite literature. Even the Hittite queens usually had Hurrian names. A number of Hittite gods are believed to have come from the Hurrian origin. The Hurri dialect was a completely distinct entity from the rest. The culture and the language of Hurri civilization was adopted or leastwise put to use substantially by Hittites and Urartus. Number 13. The Ancient Assyrian Civilization. We've been told that prior to when Egypt was overpowered by pharaohs, it was actually ruled by the gods. Absolutely no one knows indeed who such gods were. However, the most widespread speculation is that these folks were Isis, Osiris, Seth, Horus, and many more. No matter if there actually were gods, the culture did subsist within a pre-dynastic civilization in the Mediterranean and Egypt, which came to be known as the Assyrian civilization. It is usually assumed that the hordes that smashed Atlantis little by little drenched the Mediterranean river basin, demolishing most of Assyrian's finest cities. A theory is said to have revealed the presence of some weird megalithic remains in the Mediterranean. No matter what the actual facts are, archaeological research indicates that there exists a lot more than 200 submerged towns within the Mediterranean area. Based on this theory, the Egyptian civilization, in addition to Mycenaean and Minoan cultures, were leftovers of this exceptional civilization. These are merely a tiny part of numerous undiscovered ancient civilizations which have been spotted now. We must say, past cultures continue to keep appearing, with more contemporary archaeological findings. Number 14. The ancient Zapotec civilization. The Zapotecs, also referred to as Cloud People, lived around the southern highlands of central Mesoamerica, inside the valley of Oaxaca, that they colonized straight from the later half of the pre-classic phase towards the death of the classic period, from 500 BC to 900 CE. The Zapotecs' capital was initially at Monte Alban, and afterwards at Mitla. These people took over the southern highlands, communicated in a diversity of the Oto-Zapotecan language, and also gained much from cultural and trading links with the Teotihuacan, Olmec, and Maya civilizations. The Zapotecs evolved out of the farming communities that lived in the valleys across Oaxaca. During the pre-classic period, these people had set abundant trade bonds together with the Olmec civilization in the Gulf Coast that often made the development of a remarkable capital location possible at Monte Alban. This also helped the Zapotecs take over the spot in the classic period. The Zapotecs town, smartly positioned with sites of the three most important valleys, developed over centuries, starting around 500 BC, and continued to be the cultural center prior to the decline of the civilization in 900 CE. Number 15. The ancient Hatian civilization. The Hatians were the ancient individuals that lived on the terrain of Hatti in Asia Minor during the 3rd and 2nd millennia BC. These people communicated in a non-Indo-European language, connected with an ambiguous association called Hattic, which at this point is considered by some to be related to the Northwest Caucasian language group. These people in the course of time joined with and have been replaced by the Hittites, who used to communicate in the Indo-European Hittite language. Hattusha is based on northern central Anatolia, exactly towards the north side of the long-lost region of Cappadocia. Throughout the dehydrated continental climatic region, there is a light steppe vegetation, where above a bit of spacious spots you can rarely find a tree in view. The wintertime is very long and freezing, while the summers reasonably brief, however very hot. This had not always been the situation. Nonetheless, in the earlier days, the environment was a lot more humid, along with minor extremes in heat level. The Hatians were probably linked in language and propinquity to the Chaldee and Kardu too. The Chaldee actually happened to be of Bronze Age men and women inhabiting the southeastern coast of the Black Sea, which in these days is a part of Turkey. If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to us and hitting the like button. Feel free to write a comment below and suggest which theory you want to see next. If you'd like to further support this channel, please consider joining. Our membership link will be found in the description box below. We appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.